Here at home, tenants living at a Cleveland apartment complex say they're living with pests, flooding, and mold growing inside their units.
Still not addressing the horrible situations. You could come in here and remodel, but why would you remodel when I got roaches and rats and black mold?
Residents of Rainbow Terrace Apartments say they've turned to property management, and now the Department of Health has stepped in, ordering the out-of-town property owners to clean up that mess. News 5 investigator Joe Paganakis went in search of answers.
This stuff is so horrible, it's killing my breathing. Basically, I'm sleeping in a mold coffin.
Cleotis DeBose showed News 5 the results of her home mold test kits and pictures and videos of the mold invading multiple sections of her apartment unit here at Cleveland's Rainbow Terrace Apartments.
Every time it rains, the water comes in.
Cleotis showed us the water and moisture issues, telling us while property management has responded with some wall patching and replacement, she believes it's just more Band-Aids.
They wanted to bleach and water it. That's a temporary clean. It's live black mold is going to come back.
Cleotis, who uses a breathing machine, says the mold is triggering her COPD and asthma.
They have to dig around. It's the foundation. It's not the walls, it's the foundation.
Cleveland Health Director David Margolius and his team of inspectors responded to the complaints, issuing this series of violations, giving the Michigan-based property management company here at Rainbow Terrace 10 days to abate the nuisances from walls and other surfaces, locate the source of water invasion and make repairs, use measures to prevent moisture and condensation, dispose of absorbent materials that can't be cleaned.
Out-of-state landlords are the worst offenders in taking advantage of our residents.
Independent Management Services responded to our story, issuing a statement saying, "We have made repairs and cleanups multiple times in the past 6 months. We will again respond to any tenant complaints in the coming days." Meanwhile, Margolius is hoping Cleveland City Council will pass new Residents First legislation, giving the city additional tools to more quickly deal with delinquent landlords.
One is a civil ticket, so it would be a fine every day they're out of compliance.
And finally, Cleotis is concerned reporting the mold issues to city health inspectors will now cause apartment management not to renew her lease.
And when you get to saying something about what they don't like, it's time for you to go.
And Health Director Margolius says the Residents First legislation has already had its first reading in front of the full council right here at Cleveland City Hall. He's hoping a final vote on that legislation will take place sometime in February. You know, News 5 will follow through on this developing story. Reporting right here in Cleveland, I'm News 5 investigator Joe Paganakis.
Okay, the Cleveland Department of Public Health says tenants can contact the health department or the Department of Building and Housing if a landlord repeatedly refuses to address a mold issue. Tenants can also dial City Hall's 311 system to report conditions they believe are unsafe or present a potential health risk.
The smell alone in Michael Schneider's Warren house was difficult to manage, but it's what's growing on the walls that made it frightening to even walk inside beyond the stoop. Black mold, thriving, unchecked.
This is terrible. This is very, very, very toxic. It's bad. It's awful.
Michael has sent his wife and daughter away. He and his dog are staying back, trying to figure it out, sleeping in a home that is a clear and visible health hazard, simply because he feels he has no other options.
It's pretty sad, and everybody's the same way. I mean, every house, and I've been living here for 45 years, this street, this house 25 years. But I lived in that house, I lived in another house, but I know everybody around here, and all their basements were just destroyed.
Throughout Warren, there are signs of black mold where the water used to be, and those who haven't found it suspect it.
So they couldn't quite reach the beam, or at least this team couldn't, and get that side of the home. And so they said on one of my beams there is some sort of mold, but they can't determine what it is. That's not their job to do that.
Parents and grandparents are concerned their children could be breathing it.
Yeah, I just retired from the health department.
You just retired from the health department?
Yeah, about 3-4 years ago. Yes, so this is an irony to me.
Michael is overwhelmed. There is so much to get done. It is intimidating. Even though state police say there are people waiting to help. But many of the residents aren't taking advantage of that help.
Right now, if you need assistance, there are volunteers waiting to help you clean out your basement, bucket brigades, anything that you need by calling 211 to ask for assistance. That assistance is available right now today, not counting any other declaration.
But the neighbors we spoke to say they weren't aware of calling 211. They're not watching the news. They are the news.
I don't know what to do. We need help. We need federal help.
We are still dealing with the aftermath, though, of the storms. Homeowners, business owners, and people living in apartments throughout the Hudson Valley now find themselves dealing with costly cleanups after all of the heavy rain and flooding. And as News 12's Carol Wilkinson reports, many people are also trying to handle the mold contamination that the flooding left behind.
Flooded streets, rushing waters, and waterways overrunning their banks. These scenes repeated throughout the region as Ophelia left her mark.
When you walk into a damp basement, you get that smell. We all think of it just kind of as a basement smell, and that really is mold.
While the storm may be gone, growing mold has likely been left behind.
Mold releases spores, and that's how it reproduces. So the spores are the part that you breathe in, and they aggravate your lungs. And also that's how it travels around and grows more mold.
Now, experts say that mold contamination is like the gift that keeps on giving, even though nobody wants it.
The problem will keep getting bigger or more, and then it'll keep spreading out. Because like I said, those little spores that are in the air can travel freely.
And those traveling spores can cause health problems, especially in those with conditions like asthma and allergies. The hopeful news is that you can do something to stop mold from growing freely and spreading.
Run a dehumidifier and eliminate the possibility for the humidity, the fluctuations. And when you run a dehumidifier, you also want to run an oscillating fan in the opposite corner to really keep the air moving.
But ultimately, she says, you will need help in fighting and winning the battle against mold.
Make sure you control your water source, and that will lessen it. But yes, absolutely call a professional. Otherwise, you're just putting a Band-Aid on it.
In Yonkers, Carol Wilkinson, News 12.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm John Garlock. A KTVO exclusive off the top tonight. The Missouri Department of Social Services building in Kirksville is closed until further notice due to what the state calls a, quote, facility issue. A source who wanted to remain anonymous tells me that issue is black mold in the building at 1612 North Osteopathy Street, and multiple employees were getting sick with migraines and respiratory problems. I reached out to the local manager about the situation. He told me he isn't allowed to speak to the media and referred me to the state, which still has not gotten back to us. Our source says at the end of last year, all 50-plus employees were told to work from home until a new location in Kirksville can be found. December 28th was their last day in the building. Both the Family Support Division and Children's Division are impacted. I'm told employees have until next Friday to retrieve any personal belongings they have inside the building here. After that, the state will then remove its property and begin the process of killing any mold spores that might be clinging to it. Signs on the front door here say Family Support Division is temporarily closed and sorry for the inconvenience, but this building will be closed until further notice. According to online records, this property is owned by a company called Wostman Properties LLC in Rogersville, Missouri. A phone number I found online is no longer in service. Our source told me after enough employees complained about ongoing illnesses, the building was eventually tested for black mold, which confirmed its presence. The landlord reportedly took some steps to remediate the mold, but a second test revealed the spore count was still extremely high in certain parts of the building. We're told the state's main goal right now is finding at least a temporary location for the Family Support Division's Resource Center. In the meantime, you're encouraged to visit resource centers in surrounding counties.
Two on your side went inside a house crawling with mold.
It might not be visible to the eye, but the woman living there says it is there. She talked to Brittany Weiss.
Terry Taylor says she feels ill living in her house, and it's because there's mold all over the place. Mold she says her landlord had painted over. Before she moves out, she's sharing this warning to other renters.
He won't fix it. I've been dealing with this since August.
Terry Taylor says it's time for her to go. She's packed up what she could save and tossed the rest.
I've been throwing away clothes. I've lost my washing machine, my dryer.
Taylor moved into this house on Iroquois Street a year and a half ago. Then it was a decent place. Last August, she had some trouble.
My daughter called me. I left for work. She called and was like, Mom, the ceiling fell in and hit me in my head. And I'm like, what you talking about?
The HVAC had been leaking. Taylor says she alerted her landlord, Kendall Plain, and didn't hear anything for a month. Her home got very hot and became a breeding ground for mold.
And all he can do is ask for rent and paint over the mold.
The water dripping from the ceiling quickly filled a bucket. This hole in the wall tells the story of what has happened since: mold. It's between the walls. Taylor's seen it herself.
You was actually able to see all the mold. They tried covering it up.
Taylor says someone came by last week to make repairs. Before they replaced the sheetrock, she snapped this photo. It shows all the mold between the wall before it was sealed up and painted over.
You're only covering everything up, and I'm scared because when I move, the next person that get it, their health may be a little bit worse than mine and may not have a chance.
Even before Taylor moves out, the house is online for rent, $1,400 a month. And the pictures make it look like a very nice place.
The pictures look new, like nothing's wrong with the home at all.
Taylor's happy to be leaving. She has found a safer place to live and is looking forward to moving in. To On Your Side in Baton Rouge, Brittany Weiss, WBRZ News 2.